I think the question that's come up in the chat also, I think that was already answered very, very clearly by Rajesh. I think this is just an interjection that he's very clearly brought out the nuance. So,
I'd like to I'd like to raise an issue and ask the other members of the panel something I didn't realize till recently. So I'd like to know their views on it about Swami Vivekananda. First, Swami Vivekananda, I think it is fair to say that he was our first modern day celebrity. The Indian press, like he went abroad, he came back, and I think he was probably the first pan India celebrity. The second point, which is the slightly more disturbing point, is we were celebrating somebody because he was celebrated in the West. So in his fame, there was a certain lack of cultural confidence, and there was a certain lack of a Swami was being honored. Swami was being carted from one end of the land to the other because he became famous in the West. The Swami was not being honored because of who he was.
Yes.
So in that sense, that Vivekananda's fame, in that sense of Vivekananda's sudden rise to prominence, because it was not done by the European media press, it was done entirely by the vernacular, as they used to call it, and the Indian editions of the English language press. But in one sense, there was a very deep sense of, cultural lack of confidence, which he, of course, he poured his life energy out to rectify it, even as she made that point. But a template was established where unless you get a stamp of approval from the West, you're not really, and I think that is one of the big problems, that Vivekananda's fame came from something which is problematic. Would you agree with that? Or because I just recently had this thought, so I don't know if it is a valid question or and the fact that he was a celebrity, which was also very unique, and he was an English-speaking celebrity, which is again very unique. All these were he was a very strange amalgamation of time and circumstance. But his fame, I am not so happy about his fame anymore. I'm very happy about all that he has said and done and written, but I'm not so happy about the reason for his.
Yeah, I wanted to take the question that Rohit ji asked. And in doing that, the problem with not Swami Vivekananda, but where his fame comes from, a chunk of it coming due to, coming from the Western recognition. So I would deal with that question in two parts. One part is, in this rare case, saying that the West is not a monolith. I see Europe and the United States differently in this particular case. And then in the second part, I'll talk about the recognitions that come from the West. So, first of all, let me clarify where I come from. I have lived in Europe. I have not lived in the US, but I have perhaps, dealt with more Americans without going to the US by interacting with the parents of my American students who study at the US Embassy School in New Delhi. Lots and lots of them, lots of batches, and they come to India for about 3 years or so, and then they go away. So till the time they are here and they are working for the United States government. So they live in and around places like Vasant Vihar and all in Delhi. What I have seen as a remarkable difference, and this I have had a chat with Sam Pitroda once during the 2005, Indian Science Congress in Ahmedabad, Gujarat, where he agreed that while both Europe and the US are broadly defined as the West, the European tendency of looking down upon us comes from racism and supremacism. While some of it has carried on to the US when they settled their colonies there, the white people settled their colonies there. If you constantly interact with these two sets of people, you will realize that the Americans are not as condescending towards Indians as the Europeans are, as the British, French, German, Dutch people, etc. are. So Swami Vivekananda got his first recognition in the US, not in Europe. In that, I would say that despite all the shortcomings of the West, there was an element in Americans that wanted to learn what was happening beyond their realm. They miserably fail every time. You can see the way yoga is understood by Americans. They fail, but they make an earnest effort to understand things they don't. So that is not the case with Europe. Europe feels that the white people have descended on earth हमारा उद्धार करने के लिए. We are struggling, we are gutter snipes, and they are going to take us to heaven. That is the attitude with which Europe looks at the third world. America does not quite look at it like that. Now I come to the second part, which is recognition by the West. Let's talk about two other big names from Bengal, Satyajit Ray and Amartya Sen. Now, when Satyajit Ray got the Oscar, we at least the fans of his cinema did not need that Oscar to recognize Satyajit Ray. We were already celebrating him, and it gave us extra happiness the day the Academy, through Audrey Hepburn, made that announcement that Satyajit Ray would be getting that. At the same time, very honestly, despite so much of reading that I do, I did not have the foggiest of idea of who the hell this Amartya Sen was before he got the Nobel. I had absolutely no idea. And it was since the time he got Nobel in economics that the whole of India started celebrating him. And, he was a dream come true for the UPA dispensation. So anything awkward they wanted the people to believe in, they made Amartya Sen say that. And, Amartya Sen is very relevant in our talk today because he has been one of the worst misrepresenters of Hinduism. If you look at his interpretations of the Mahabharata and other Puranas, Amartya Sen's interpretations, it is horrible, and he is very popular among the woke and of course also among the left. But of the left, since I would say the Ram Janmabhoomi movement, because before that they were very clearly, not covertly, atheists. They swore by atheism, but when they found a wave in society turning against them, they started reinterpreting things, in a rationalizing way, saying that we do not rule out the belief system of Hindus, but we just look at it in a different way. Whereas the woke crowd would just lap up anything that comes from the West. So I would qualify this recognition by West in a different way, whether it comes in the form of recognition of Satyajit Ray that way, or it comes in the form of recognition of Amartya Sen. These are two completely different things. And for some people, I think that validation was not required. That validation from the US was not required, but for a lot many others, it was required, and that is certainly unfortunate. Yeah, I absolutely agree with Rohit ji. It is unfortunate that that should be the bigger source of his fame. Yeah.
Even Rabindranath, till he got his Nobel Prize, was regarded as some kind of guy who's fiddling with the purity of the language. Calcutta University put up a passage of his work and said, rewrite in correct Bengali. Can you believe that? Can you can you even imagine a situation like that? But once he got the Nobel Prize, okay, fine.
Yeah.
So it is not, me, I cannot demean Vivekananda in any way. But it just occurred to me that the reason why he became so important was a rather sad reason. Like we did not, it is like who was that Swamiji in Karnataka, Ramesh, who was 11 years old, and he was called the God who walks amongst us, and all the obituaries were about his NGO.
Yeah, Shivakumara Swamiji.
Yeah, all the obituaries were about his NGO work, and I'm like, he's been a sannyasi since age 23.
I wrote
111.
Yeah, I wrote about him. I think that was the only one where I spoke about the spiritual side.
Yeah, and did he not have any spiritual accomplishments? Did he have, it is all hospital beds and school books.
Right. He was
so it was just, so I just felt that, like, to me, I suppose there was no other way, there was no other way that it could have happened. So I'm not going to complain about that, but, the template unfortunately got, and then, Rabindranath, who was like God in Bengal. But he was not always God, till the Nobel Prize came, he was not God. He was a stormy petrel sort of.
In fact, Gitanjali happens to be one of his inferior creations.
Well, let's not get into that, Baba. Let's not get into.
He was marvelous.
Let's not get into imposition of emergency person always quoting whether my mind is without fear. Into that heaven of freedom, let my country awake. Chitta Jeta, why should know is not whether mind is without fear. That's two different poems altogether.